Howdy Pitmasters, I'm going to show you how to cook the perfect pork ribs on your kettle grill. Let's get to it. So the first thing we're going to do by preparing our ribs is to remove the membrane, and this is that layer of silver skin on the back that won't render down and it will ruin your cook and it isn't edible. So if you make a small incision with a knife in the corner, you should be able to use some paper towel and grab it and rip it off all in one big pool like this. So we're going to do that to both racks of ribs. Then we're going to rub our ribs up, and today we're using my raunchy rib sweet and spicy barbecue red rub, which is perfect for pork ribs. So you're going to apply a really liberal amount across both sides, front and back, on both racks of ribs. Then you're going to pat rub it down to allow that rub coat to set in nicely. Look at that perfect colour. These are going to go down great. Now we're ready to get onto the grill. So our chimney's fully lit up. Time to pour these coals into the pit. So we're going to pour them over to one side because we're going to smoke indirectly, and we're going to place the ribs on the other side. And we'll just move over any loose bits of coal back into the pile. So now we're going to chuck our smoking wood on. So I'm using 2 chunks of cherry wood here, and we're going to place one on either side of the coals, and these should last the length of the entire cook. Then we're going to get our rib rack on. You don't have to use one of these, but I'm just using it for this cook, just for a bit of better space allocation inside the pit. So now that these are in position, time to get the lid on and let them smoke for an hour or so, and then we'll come back and check them. Also, just make sure your damper's facing the opposite side of the fire to allow oxygen flow through and make sure it's fully open. So we've been smoking these ribs at 275 Fahrenheit for about an hour, so let's have a little look at them. And they are coming along good. We'll come back and check them shortly. So we are just over 2 hours in, and these things are looking good, and they are ready to wrap. Alrighty, it's time to wrap. So we're going to use a few dollops of butter on both racks of ribs, and we're just going to spread it out nicely just like this. Get a good nice coat on there. Sometimes I like to pour in apple juice as well and boat it, but we're not doing that this time. We're just going to do the butter and a whole heap of brown sugar on both racks as well. And that is going to melt the butter down, melt into the sugar and spread over these ribs and give a really good result. So we're not going to wrap them up all the way. We're going to leave a bit of ventilation at the top, so it's more of a boat method, but this should still do the trick. So wrap them up nicely like this, and then we get them back onto the pit. Again, we place them back on completely indirectly, and we'll let these go for about another 40 minutes or so, or until probing tender, or at around that 190 Fahrenheit degrees internal temperature mark. So these have been on for about another 45 minutes, and they're looking good. They've got a nice colour to them, so let's probe them. And we can see here we're hovering between that 185 and 195 Fahrenheit internal mark. So these are ready to take off, sauce up, and get them back on the pit for another 15 minutes. Right, so we've got our ribs up, and now time to sauce them up. So I'm just using a bit of a homemade barbecue sauce here that's got a bit of brown sugar, a few other things in there, a bit of apple cider, and we're going to rub this really nicely, a real liberal amount across both sides of the ribs. And then we put them back on the pit for 15 minutes or so, and that sauce is going to caramelise, come nice and chewy, and give a real nice shiny sheen glaze to these ribs. So we'll come back in about 10 to 15 minutes, and these things will be ready to rest and slice. So after 15 minutes, we'll take our ribs off. That sauce is caramelised. We've got a nice sheen and shiny colour to them. Going to be really nice and chewy sauce layer on the outside. And now we're going to flip these ribs over and slice them. And they are cutting through like butter. Look at that. That is an amazing bite. Doesn't fall off the bone, but you can see the chew marks in there. Comes away with these as a perfect competition style pork rib. Cheers everyone.